that's why people end up burning out and hating what they do and are online complaining about entrepreneurship, is because they scaled. They're doing $10 million a year, but they have no idea why. And they have no time on their hands to do anything.
What is going on, guys? Today on the Collecting Keys Real Estate Investing Podcast, we have Cole Ruud-Johnson, who is another very big operator in the United States, and super stoked to have him on the show today. We do all these interviews, and very rarely do we get people that I think are like, high level real estate operators, right? So you get a ton of people that have like their niche businesses in their markets, which is cool. But for us as people that are also trying to grow like a larger business, getting the opportunity to meet with guys like Cole is honestly kind of why we started this podcast, to be able to sit down and have a conversation with him for like an hour and talking about everything from, real estate itself to business systems to kind of like the mindset around business and everything else is super valuable. And he covered a ton of great stuff in this episode.
Yeah, he's already 25. And I think we've had guys who are 65 or people at least double his age that haven't dropped as much wisdom. So he's done a lot and he's a true operator. And selfishly, like you said, these are the kind of people we like being around because we get to ask them the questions we're curious about. And he talks a lot about how to use leverage, which is not a dirty word, and how to leverage people and how to leverage time so you can actually scale a real business and not have to sit there and be a hustler your whole real estate career.
Yeah. Which is such a huge part that so many people struggle with when they start getting into real estate investing business is you have these cash flow problems, you have like the variability in revenue, but your costs kind of stay the same. And we kind of dive into all that sort of stuff, how to address it, how to view it, how to mentally deal with it. And overall, it was just a really valuable conversation around being an entrepreneur, not only in the real estate space, but just like in any sort of business that you decide to get into. So definitely give him a follow on all of his socials, guys. He's a very good person to follow. His podcast is also awesome, especially if you are trying to be a serious real estate investor. So go and subscribe to him over there too. And, don't be afraid to reach out to him. People come on these shows because they want exposure. They want you to engage with them. So, shoot him a DM, check out his show, send him an email. His assistant will probably only gets back to you, but it's okay. That's how it's
basically him.
So yeah, basically him as far as he was saying at the end of this one. So anyways, guys, we appreciate you all. Please leave us a 5-star review and share this with anyone who might find this show helpful, and enjoy this episode with Cole, guys. It's a great
See y'all.
All right, Cole, I'm super excited to have you on the show, man. You are someone that I've been really excited to have on for a while because you were, I would say, like the young guy that was getting after it when I first started getting into real estate. And now you're still the young guy and you're still getting after it, but you have grown such an incredible amount. So I'm super excited to dive into this conversation with you today. And I'm excited too, because we're going to have some good business talk in this conversation, which is, what it's all about at the end of the day, once you sort of reach that general real estate knowledge. So Cole, for people who don't know you, maybe give like a brief little introduction, who you are, what you do, I know there's a ton of long form content from you out there. So just give us like the short version.
Absolutely. Well, first off, thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah, man.
Happy to be here. Looking forward to it. I thought you were about to segue into me being old now. That was like,
come on, bro.
Still, well, the funny thing is
now he's the old guy.
Yeah.
And I played pickleball last night and woke up to some swollen knees and stuff. I'm like, man. 25, 26 does not feel like 20. That's for sure. But yeah, my background, I come from a real estate family, right? Of realtors, not investors. My great grandma was a realtor. My grandma's a realtor. My mom was a realtor. My brother's a realtor. And so I grew up, when I wanted to make some extra change, I was helping my mom stage homes on the weekend, or taking the U-Haul with my dad to pick up equipment for staging houses, things of that nature. And so when the older I got into high school and then college, every day I'd sit in class, go, I just want to figure out a way to make my own money. It made me literally sick to my stomach for whatever reason. I don't know if I was born that way or something happened, but it made me sick to my stomach to think of working for someone else. And I've never had a job. When I first needed to make money coming out of kind of end of high school, I would coach basketball, where I do my own trainings and invite a bunch of kids and charge their parents $50 in a lesson or whatever. And so fast forward into college, there was one Tuesday I drove home and was like, screw it, I'm headed home. So I dropped out my sophomore year, and I had done running start. So I had a couple years already done. I was like, I can go back if I need to and take a couple years here and dive into this. And that led into me being a real estate agent. My whole family was realtors. And I said, man, I want to make money, right? I want the BMW. I want to be able to go have coffees 3 times a day. And I want to be, that's the realtor life, right? So I had my license from the summer before, and I started doing open houses and showings, and quickly realized that you don't get rich all of a sudden from being just because you have your real estate license, especially when you're 19 and you live in Seattle. And so then finally, I'm going through this quickly because I want to get to the important part. I hung my license at a brokerage called Caliber, who did a lot of auction stuff. So they were going to the auction. They were having Thursday night investor meetings at their office, collecting checks, going to the auction the next day for their clients and bidding on auction properties and making assignment fees. And I'm like, man, that's an interesting business. And I think I've always been, predispositioned towards business more than real estate. So it was a good kind of combo. And that led me down the path of wholesaling, which is what my primary thing I did for a couple of years. And obviously that's led to a bunch of different companies, which I'm excited to talk about those with you guys as well today. But that's my background. It was a pretty simple. I had to make money. I was probably the worst realtor of all time. I just didn't like it. So I went the wholesaling off market route and found that game, and that has led in door after door after door after door for the past 6-7 years.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. And it's such a simple sort of origin story, right? But I think that's mostly where a lot of people come from. People just like to add an extra drama to make it interesting, right?
Yep.
So no, that's cool though, man. So now I guess fast forward, you have done a ton of stuff the past couple of years. You had a very successful wholesale operation. That's where I first got introduced to you years ago. I think maybe when you were on Bigger Pockets or one of those. What are all your businesses look like now? Because I know we talked right before the show, business is now your main focus.
Yeah. So for my real estate business in of itself, for years and years and years, we do a couple $1 million a year in revenue, but there was no the more I realized and I grow in business, you have to have like a clear what and why. I didn't really have that. I was just doing it to pay the bills, to make money, to make 10, 20, 30, 40 grand a month, and to live the life I wanted to live, which is awesome. But as I've gotten into it more intensely, I've started thinking about how do I use the real estate business as more of a very tactical place to build something meaningful. And for me, that's so business. So my other companies, like I own a couple big call centers, and we also do some consulting, and those are for the most part much more scalable companies. And so what they do is they feed my real estate side now. So I don't just wholesale to wholesale. I don't just do deals to do deals. It's very intentional now. Helopad's still running, but it's very intentional. If we're going to do a deal, there's a purpose to it. It's not just to make a check, because in all my other businesses are surrounding real estate. It's just the real estate company itself. And that's what I teach a lot is you have to have an intention to it. Otherwise, you're just going to always be on the hamster wheel, which is dangerous because I've seen that happen to so many people. They flip houses their whole life. They get to 50, 60 years old and they realize, crap, I made a ton of money, but I have no idea where that money is because there's no intention behind their business. And I think to a lot of people, they just scale to scale. And to me, scale means profit and purpose. Like scale means how can I make more money and what am I going to do with that money so I can build a machine. And my whole thing and everything I teach is how do we build machines that run themselves and machines that build machines. And especially if you're listening to this, how do you build a machine that buys real estate or wholesales real estate or flips real estate rather than you being the person wearing all 7, 8 hats, doing all the work. So yeah, I have a call center. We service real estate investors, also a bunch of different people in different industries. That's grown big time. Our headquarters in Belize now, which is a couple hour flight from LA, couple hour flight from New York, Central Time Zone, English first country. And then we have a couple consulting businesses and then the real estate stuff. So yeah.
Okay. I like what you're saying there. Like, so you have these other businesses that are real estate adjacent, but that's what's feeding your investment strategy. Is that kind of what I'm hearing? So you're creating the income so that which is your purpose to invest that money and let that machine keep growing over there as well.
Yeah. Every person I met that's extremely wealthy has figured out how to play the game of business and growing actual businesses, even if it's a real estate business, and then protecting that wealth and compounding that wealth in real estate. So that's my what and why now. It's generate as much cash as possible through my companies and then strategically invest that into real estate and do deals that have long-term purpose, not just to make 10, 20, 30 grand, which is awesome. You can make a lot of money wholesaling, a lot of money flipping. I think it's an incredible business. But for me, I'm just trying to be more strategic now, with the purpose behind each deal that I do.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's something that so many new people to entrepreneurship, or like I'd say like most people, they start with a financial freedom movement, and then entrepreneurship kind of comes around after that.
Yep.
But they don't realize that in order to make passive money, you have to be making like real money. You have to have the vertical income as well. So I love kind of that transition that you went through. And, a lot of people, they tend to find that through real estate, through wholesaling, through flipping houses, whatever that is. And you're completely right. People don't have like a sort of strategy. So when you're doing it with intention now, are you still wholesaling businesses with your HelloPad company, or are you literally just doing that as like a private marketing machine for your own deals now, and you're using these other companies to buy those investments?
Yeah, we do deals when they come our way. So we're still doing deals. I guess my point is, we're just not like, I have no intention of doing deals just to do deals. So we still do deals, but it's not my main focus is just running up wholesale deals. So yes, it's more of a tactical machine to build what I want to build. And obviously, I think the best combination, especially in a tax strategy, is to make a bunch of money, whether that's flipping, wholesaling, doing other businesses, and then protecting that in real estate. Like that's how a lot of the wealthiest people in our country operate. So I think that's more of my angle now. It's less about like, hey, let's go do 200 assignment deals in the next year. It's more about, okay, yeah, we'll do the deals that come to us that make sense. Because obviously, like I'm for profit. If a deal comes to across our plate, it's $50,000 wholesale deal, we're going to do it. But how do we focus our team on the real estate side on stuff that actually moves the needle for myself? Because a lot of people, I think that they forget you're either building a life around your business, or you're either building your life to serve your business, or your business to serve your life. And I asked myself that question a year ago. I'm like, and I was more so building my life to serve my business. And I think that's why people end up burning out and hating what they do and are online complaining about entrepreneurship, is because they scaled. They're doing $10 million a year, but they have no idea why. And they have no time on their hands to do anything.
Dude, I resonate with that a ton. Like Mike and I have like really been beating this drum recently, because like the idea Mike mentioned earlier is like making massive income, but the idea is making massive income and then investing that in real estate. And the whole idea of building a real estate business and just collecting cash flow, like that is a freaking struggle. So learn how to make real money. And then like you're saying, I love the way you're phrasing that, is like protect it with real estate. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I was at a meetup with Aaron Amuchstegui about a month ago in Austin, and he opened the meetup with the line that real estate is not the thing. Real estate is the thing that gets you to the thing. And that really resonated with me as just like that's like the grown-up view about what real estate investing can do for you, right? So cool. So when you say you're strategically looking for your own assets now, what does that look like, I guess, mentality wise, since you have these cash flowing machines with your other businesses? Are you still investing for cash flow? Are you looking for like equity spreads? Is it purely for tax benefits? Are you looking like residential or commercial stuff? Like what's all that look like?
Yeah. So I'm a guy like, and I kind of told you guys pre-show, like I like business a lot more than I like real estate. So a lot of what I do is purely like protection. So a lot of what my HelloPad does now, we're looking at just like really solid assets in markets like San Diego, where I live now, that, you're not going to get a crazy return. You're not going to get an insane amount of cash flow. You're not going to get, we're not flipping it for $100,000. What can we buy that we know is going to appreciate? Because San Diego is an appreciation monster. What can we buy we at least make a little bit of money on, that's an appreciation monster that gets us tax write-offs and is in a safe, secure market? Because San Diego is one of those markets you can't go north because you have the military base. You can't really go east because you have mountains and a bunch of desert. You can't go south because you have Mexico. So you're really kind of cornered, and you get just a massive appreciation. So that's my thing is how do we buy assets that have equity built in, have a little bit of a value add component if we wanted to sell them or whatever, and play that game on the real estate side, and on the business side, make as much cash there to do that. That's more my thing now. Like I'm not really a big cash flow guy. Like I've owned a portfolio of duplexes around the country. I've tried the in your backyard model. I've tried the around the country model. And I just never got I know it works for people, but it's always, anytime you see someone online saying, oh, we're making $500 a month on this house, I go, yeah, but one thing breaks and you're in the red for the year, right? Like it's not as attractive of business. And I think the real estate business, especially scaling a flipping company, a development company, people don't realize you have fixed overhead and variable revenue, right? You don't have any recurring revenue. Everything's variable on the revenue side. And so you're locking in salespeople, and you're locking in an office, and you're locking in debt. You're locking in a bunch of stuff that's fixed expenses on variable revenue, and revenue that's very dependent on the market. And I'm not like a negative anti-real estate. Like, I love real estate. It's what made me who I am. It's more of just cautioning people as they're building their company, why they're building it and what they're building. Because I think you can wholesale and flip houses your way to an amazing income. But eventually, if you don't start focusing on building a business and an organization, it won't last long. Either you'll burn out, or you'll get golden object syndrome. You'll chase the next best thing a guru put online. And so I know it's a bit of a tangent, but for me, my strategy is buy assets are not going to go anywhere, are going to appreciate, are going to give you some tax write-offs, and let that be that. And if they don't make money, that's fine, as long as they don't lose money. And for me, that's for right now, and that constantly changes, but for me right now, that's how I think about it.
That's a great realistic view. Like I don't think it's a bad view at all. I think it's just facing reality. And you're saying you're not doing deals just to do deals, which is what we get caught up into, this rat race. Like you're saying, like if you're a flipper, like you're just flipping to flip at some point because you have an arbitrary goal, or you have to pay your fixed overhead, your crews and all that sort of stuff. Yep. And Mike and I are trying to be like this too in real estate. Just be more opportunistic with the opportunities in front of you, and use what you have, your massive income or your income from your business, to take advantage of longer term plays in real estate. And it seems to be, like Mike said earlier, the mature way to look at it. And I think what you're saying, it's a really realistic point of view.
Yeah. I mean, look at San Diego. The median home price just for a single family is about $1 million. So I go, hey, if I buy 5 homes in the next 5 years in good areas that are $1 million-ish bucks, okay, they may just break even. In 10 years in San Diego, those are probably going to double in value. Yep. So that's in the next 10 years, I'm going to have $5 million in appreciation. And a lot of times a lot quicker. And that's the game. It's to buy solid assets, let them appreciate, and then 1031 into if I wanted 1031 into duplexes, fourplexes, and go bigger and play bigger ring. That's awesome. And I can use my machine, the machine I know how to do, which is source deals, to go find those assets. But I look at some of the most wealthy guys I know. A lot of people don't do this either, but really taking advantage too of the 2 year. If you're married, right, every 2 years you trade your primary residence, you get a $500,000 tax free. And in San Diego, you get a little bit of value add. You're doing that every single 2 years, and you do that for 10 years, and you have a couple $1 million just tax free income that way, not income, but tax free equity that way. So that's the thing I think about. It's a lot more simple than people think. Like they don't have to do 1 million deals to live the life they want to live, and that's why I think screws people over, is because then they get on that hamster wheel and they start building their expenses and building their overhead. They don't need to most of the time, they don't need to hit their goals.
Yeah. So that, what you mentioned there about the fixed expenses with the variable income is such a misunderstood thing by, I would say, like smaller investment companies. Yep. And, with our coaching program, people ask us all the time. In fact, someone asked us this on our coaching call yesterday, is like, how do you guys manage the cash flow situation with this? Because, I feel like we'll have a lot of money coming out, closings get delayed, deals aren't as big as you expect. All of a sudden you're in a cash crunch, and that's pretty much unavoidable, right? Because you can determine what your average cost per deal is going to be, but you don't know if that deal is going to be, a $10,000 fee or a $100,000 fee. Like it can literally vary that much for the same cost. So let's transition over to like the system side and the business side of what you're talking about. And for someone that's kind of stuck in that hamster wheel, right, or trying to like figure out how to solve that, what are like some of the main systems that they could put in place to overcome that, do you think?
Yeah, I think systems wise, if you feel like you're on a hamster wheel, really the first thing you need to understand is what you're doing with your time. That's where I start. And so there's an exercise that anyone I work with or anyone I talk to, or people on my team, like our mid-management team, our the leaders in our companies, it's the same strategy I have them do, which is the time audit. So they spend 2 weeks and they document their day in 30-minute increments for 2 weeks. And that's a good place to start, because then you're really going to see, like, where's my time going? And for most people, even if they say they're working 10 hours a day, they're probably only really working and moving the needle for an hour and a half, 2 hours a day. And I see that time and time again. And so first understanding the first thing of leverage, which is time, where your time's going. And then the next thing I always focus on is based on that is how we can start buying back our time. Like, I don't think people need to go in and grab a super fancy CRM and anything like that. I think the first systems, like baseline foundational thing you can do after understanding your time is hiring global talent. Because people, even if you're making $50, $60, $70,000 a year, you can afford to start hiring someone for $3, $4, $5 an hour that can come in and take all the admin work off your plate. Because most people aren't really struggling. Yeah, they have a lack of systems, and you can also automate a lot of things, but a lot of people are struggling with burnout and exhaustion, and they feel like they don't have time because they're spending so much time doing admin things they just don't need to be doing. Like you guys said pre-show, right? After a show, you have a team that cuts up your show, I'm guessing distributes it across social media, and that's a process. But really, what that is, it's a hire. And so many people can get rid of. Most people can get rid of 70% of what they do right now, especially this non-client, non-human facing, with $1, $5, $6, $7 an hour hire. And that's the first place I like having people start, because that really opens their brain to business and delegation. And systems are easy to put in, right? You buy a CRM, you do a couple little tweaks, but that's really where I like to start, because then you build that muscle, and then you start solving problems and asking yourself who, not how can I do it myself. That's the biggest differentiator between a hustler and an operator. Is it goes from you solving every problem to you asking who can solve this problem for me. Because most problems, you go on Upwork.com, whatever you're facing, if you have an issue with your website, you can spend 8 hours trying to learn WordPress, or you can hire someone for $100 contract to step in and fix that whole issue. And I think that's the biggest thing people have to have that mental switch to, because you can't really hustle yourself. Most people can't hustle their way to the business they want to build. You have to learn how to get more leverage, and that usually starts with people.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. I know it does. And it's funny. That's always such a challenging thing for people to understand. I don't know if it's like limiting beliefs, if it's like fear of commitment to this other person, like what that is. I don't know. But like
I think it's sorry to cut you off. I think that that piece is mostly where we live in a culture where everything's promoted of grind, hard work, 10-hour days, and you can get to a good income that way, but you can't get wealthy that way. Like, and you can't beat your head against the wall to a $5 million a year business. You have to eventually learn leverage, learning how to hire, learning how to systemize, learning how to delegate, and learning how to actually lead and own an organization. And that's why people, because they start doing that and they go, man, well, I don't have a million things to work on today. And that's the biggest thing I see people fail with. They can afford to hire, they can afford to do all these things. They just don't, because they're addicted to that dopamine of completing that next task, to doing the same work they've done every single day for 10 years. And I think that's the biggest thing. It's not that they're doing anything wrong. They just haven't, flexed that muscle at all and built that muscle, because it is a muscle you have to build. And so they're forever caught in this game of how can I do as many tasks as humanly possible? Because that's how they get their self-worth, is how much they did. And they don't have any leverage.
Man, that's tough too to overcome. Like, I'm one of those people that I've historically been like super task oriented, right? Like, I'm going to just keep piling shit on and keep doing more and more. And that doesn't give you a lot of time to do the real stuff, like the real strategy thinking, and really like giving your brain the break so that all the creativity shit can pop in your head. That's why they say, like, when you're taking a shower or you're doing something where you can't do anything else but that, is when your most creative ideas come, because you're finally giving your brain that time to like, okay, I like thinking about that.
Yep, 100%. That's true for me. Like, I have a business coach who was a Nighthawk pilot for the Navy SEALs.
Wow.
And he tells me every single week, he has to remind me, he's like, you're honestly, your highest and best use of your time is when you're on the golf course, you're in the hot tub, and your brain's turned off of like intense focus, and it's thinking through issues. Because when you truly own a business, that's your ultimate job. Like Bezos says too, it's right. His executive team, the leaders in his company, their job is to make a couple good decisions per day. That's the rule. And I think I've struggled with that for a long time. People really struggle with that, of our identities are so tied to how many hours you sit behind a computer. You stop forgetting that, like, I mean, if you're on a walk, you might have one idea or one thing that if you implement will 10x your business that you're not going to get if you're responding to emails all day. I think we just have because of the school system, and I have a lot of thoughts about that, because of how we're raised, so task oriented, it twists around leverage, and most people never learn leverage, or they feel bad about using leverage. And it's a vicious cycle.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the feeling bad about using leverage is a big one, especially because so many people, they dislike their W-2s, their current life situation, that they feel like a sense of guilt trying to like have someone come in to what they view as a safe
I've had people tell me that the word leverage is not a nice word. It's like, are you kidding me? Like, that's an amazing word. Like the idea of leveraging time, leveraging other people, like that is awesome.
Yeah, I get, whenever I post about my call center, I get so much hate. Like, oh, you're paying these people $5 an hour. I'm like, yeah, but you go to these countries, and like I've been to Belize, I've been to our centers down there, and people are thrilled to have, because that's the top of the pyramid employment in their country,
Right.
and jobs are not a bad thing. And I feel like most people should have jobs, because everything we're talking about is awesome, but most human beings are not capable of containing the amount of stress and things that go wrong to own a business. Because business on paper is simple. Writing down a plan to buy assets is simple. It's the day in, day out, like it's between the ears part that's the difficult part. And if you don't truly love it, if you're not truly wired internally to and a part of you like that, you probably should have a job. And I'm more, that's the train I'm on more and more. I think when the market was hot, everyone became a sexy real estate investor. And the reality is, like, there's nothing wrong with having a job, because a lot of people have great experiences with that and build a lot of wealth while having a job.
Yeah, truly underrated comment right there, honestly.
Yeah.
And there's this, I think that's also part of the hustle culture, is people are driven towards wanting to make something of themselves. And most people don't even know that they aren't cut out for it.
Yeah.
Honestly, where you see it a ton is when people, have like marriages, and there's one person that has an entrepreneurial drive and wants to, pursue that. And then they have a spouse that is not fully aligned. And, we all know guys and girls who have these, entrepreneurial spirits, and they always have the same question, like, how do I get my spouse on board? Like, they're not willing to take the risk. They're not willing to, commit to these things. Like, well, they're not the same mindset, and they're not going to be able to convince them. Like, they just don't have that natural bug. Right.
Yeah. A lot of it's just built in, I feel like, in reality. So yeah, I mean, I think, and a lot of people have spouses too that do support them, but this is another game I think people get caught up in. And something I've been preaching about a lot is like the working 10 hours a day. Like, the difference to most people, if they end up being worth 15 million, 20 million, is not that significant. And I have a business coach of mine who had an engagement when he was in his 20s, and he came home one day, and after he just sold his company for tens of millions, and his fiance put the ring on the counter, was like, I'm done. And she told him, she's like, it's awesome what you're doing, but I never asked for any of it. And so I think too, like, people that are building companies, a reason they burn out, they're in the office 12 hours a day and put all this pressure on themselves to make an extra $100,000 a year, to make an extra $10 million. Like, at the end of the day, a lot of people, that's a hustle culture thing. A lot of people, you weren't asked, no one asked you to do that. And I think really finding and being okay with what your tolerance for stress, because I'm really passionate about this now, because I had a buddy recently who decided it was too much. He had so much pressure on himself, so much stress on himself, that he decided, like, I'm better off not being here. And a lot of people they dig themselves in a hole with personally guaranteed debt and with stress and payroll, without even understanding why they're doing that, or if they want to be doing that, just because that's what society deems is cool. So yeah.
That's a super valuable what you're saying there too, and talking just about the alignment and nobody asking you. We had a really good conversation yesterday for like probably an hour and a half with some GoBundance guys, talking about like your vision and getting super clear with that, but then aligning that vision to like, what is your spouse, what are your kids, like what is your family vision? Because you could be caught up in that situation where you're like, I'm doing it for you guys. It's like, are you? Because nobody asked you to do it. Now you're just like burning the candle wick at both ends because some ego thing. Yeah, right? Exactly.
It's an ego thing, right? And I had to ask myself, like, what does my wife truly want? And she grew up with a dad who's in business, so she likes that life, right? She wants, and she's okay with that. But still, like, do they really care if there's like an extra 20 grand left over at the end of the month, we don't need it? No, most, like, they really don't. Obviously you still want to have financial security, and I'm very pro money, very pro capitalism. Like, I'm all about make as much money as you can and provide as many jobs as you can. But I think the game, so many people are hurting so bad, right? Especially right now with the way the market's turned, because they're playing a game they don't want to be playing, just because they think other people care, or want them to be playing that game.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. So going back to that overseas talent, which I think is, a huge piece that a lot of people need to work to their business. I'm not going to ask like how to get started finding that, because, anyone can go post on Upwork or
Yeah,
on the
I
jobs
have
page
YouTube
or
videos
whatever.
too that are like hours long of like
Yeah.
the step by
Yeah.
step of that.
Yeah. They're all over the place. Right. What would you say though for people who want to find the best talent? And like the best overseas talent. Like
I don't
what
think
kind of
people need to be
people, what
worried
kind of
about the
roles?
best talent. I think you need to be worried about how to manage, right? Because that's what's not taught. You can find YouTube videos on like hiring, but then it's really the management side. And so I teach really, a 3 or 4 step process to managing any overseas talent and making them good. Because with the AI tools that are out there, you can take someone that can barely speak English in the Philippines, and they can be a really good asset to your team. So the first thing we do is we're just very clear on like what we want them to do. And what I mean by that is we don't just say, hey, I want you to do X, Y, Z. We build a process for them to do it. And that usually consists of a Loom video, step-by-step instruction on how to do that task, a trigger and a definition of done, and then training them on it one time live. That's the second piece. It's actually being clear into your documentation of what that task is. How do they know when they should do it? How do they know it's done? And the next thing is how they report to you and how you measure against what you're setting for them. So a lot of people make the mistake is they micromanage every single day. They're worried about every single hour are the people they're paying and doing their job. I think that's a terrible way to go about it. It's going to make your life miserable. So what I tell people is set really clearly defined measurables and make sure you understand what success looks like, and then communicate that to them. And then have your call once a week with them and have your KPIs. You can track what they're doing and measure against whatever you said success looks like. Because I see so many people, they go and hire someone from the Philippines. They treat them like garbage. They treat them like they're subhuman just because they don't live in the United States, and they expect them to perform great. And they're slacking them every 20 minutes, making sure they're doing their work. Like that doesn't work. What does work is setting a very clearly defined task, setting a very clear defined idea of what success looks like, communicating that, and then measuring against that on a weekly basis. That to me is what a good starting place is for managing someone. So it's not as much about finding the best hire; it's how you manage that hire. Because if you can do that piece right, you don't have to find the perfect person.
So true. That's like leadership 101, right? Like set expectations. And then the one thing that people suck at is actually follow through on those expectations. Check in with them, help them grow, help them meet those expectations.
Yeah. And I don't know what that is with like, the people that treat the overseas, VAs like garbage. I've seen that all the time.
Bad character trait.
I've seen that from guys that I know are super well off that will be posting things like, hey, so my VA, I've been tracking their time, watching their screen. They're only actually working 30 hours a week. Like, how do I get out of having to pay them for 40? Or like, is there anyone that wants them to do 10 hours?
Save $20. Yeah.
I'm like, you think fucking Sharon, your assistant that sits at your office, works for 40 hours a week? No, she works for 12.
Doesn't know how to use email.
Yeah, that's the thing. They just shouldn't be business owners.
That's exactly. They should not hire people.
If you're taking the responsibility of hiring someone and taking ownership over their income, you have to know how to manage. Otherwise, you shouldn't be doing it. That's my opinion on that, because it's so common.
Do you?
I think that's the number one thing that exposes people to me of like, okay, yeah, you shouldn't own a business. That's just the reality of it.
Do you have like a key hire that you've hired? I'm thinking like on the executive assistant level, or somebody that helps you kind of manage your day to day, because that's something Mike and I have talked about. Like that to me sounds like a really nice thing to have.
I made a lot of hires. So my biggest thing, every business I grow, I follow just a step by step. So I hire for admin, then I hire fulfillment, then I hire marketing, then sales, and then leadership. That's my just like set blueprint. But what I can say is a couple key hires I made that have changed the game for me, not just in business, but personally. I have a personal chief of staff, and she's based in Toronto. She's makes a good salary and gets a commission on the businesses. And what she is, I call her like the Swiss Army knife. She jumps into any fire that's going on. She's like my clone of me. So she can handle any situation just like I could. She jumps in if we need a project completed, if we need to hire in a certain company. So she's like a bandwidth extender for each company and everything that I do. Then I have an executive assistant that's like email, calendar, inbox, bills, payroll, travel, all that kind of stuff. That's a life-changing hire for people, because like you shouldn't check your email more than once a day. And like my biggest thing that changed the game for me is an EA, $6-7 an hour. We have an email system where he has an inbox, I have an inbox. I only look at the stuff he puts in my inbox and we flag on our bi-daily review. I don't look at my email besides that unless he flags something for me. So I respond to attorneys, I respond to my business partners, and I respond to like requests from people that I know or through a connection. That's it. And that's what most people, they're spending an hour, 2-3 hours a day on email when you should be spending 10 minutes max. Same thing for Slack, same thing for your calendar, same thing for travel and bills. Like you can get half your day back. Most people can, paying someone $7 an hour. So I think those two things are big. And then the third one is kind of a luxury hire, but we hired a house manager, my wife and I. It's not even expensive. It costs like $1,000 a month. And she comes 3 hours a day. It's laundry, dishes, cars are clean, groceries are ordered, like everything's done. And that to me was the most personal life impactful hire, because you have, that buys back a ton of time and bandwidth. And if you guys are married, I'm sure you can imagine what else that buys back in terms of just peace of mind.
Right.
So yeah, those are a couple that have really changed the game. I have a head of content too, who's full-time, who just all of our media strategy and runs our editors and our graphic design team and all that kind of stuff.
Okay. Nice. Yeah, we just brought in the head of content, which has been huge for us. I have a question regarding your EA. Like, what did that transition look like to like bringing that person in? We can pause. You can fix your mic.
Your mic just fell apart.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll ask that question again. Here, Max, cut this part out.
I haven't seen that before, dude.
Yeah,
that's funny.
Like I said, right? It's just you got to be willing to solve the big issues. Like
right. That's good stuff. Now I'm all worried.
Okay, I think it'll survive the rest of the show here if I stop playing.
Okay, cool, good.
Yeah, good to go.
All right, cool. I'll pause here real quick and I'll ask that question again.
Cool. Let's do
it. All right, so I have a question about what that looked like bringing in your EA, because something that I've thought about for a while, and honestly, one of the most daunting things is like, what does that handoff look like in terms of like all your accounts in your email and everything else? Because like my stuff's already like, to pile of spaghetti. All of a sudden I have to like just give it to somebody else and they figure out how to untangle it and have someone else take it over. Do you have any like tips or guidance for that?
Yeah, I think it's just being okay with it being a mess for a while, honestly. Like it's going to take time to unwind the knot we create for ourselves, but it's pretty simple. It's like just I would start with the email inbox. That's the first place I would start. And I would just meet with them daily for the first 2 weeks for 15 minutes in the morning and help them understand your decision-making process when it comes to your inbox, and set a clear, defined process. If they're a business partner that has one of these names, if they're an attorney, if there's someone that introduces me via CC and email for a podcast opportunity or something like that, something I need to respond to, put it in my inbox, let me know on our meeting. Anything else, if it's I'm on a vacation and someone emails saying, "Hey Cole, can you come on my podcast? Hey Cole, can you blah blah blah?" You can just literally, and they live in my inbox, so they also have their own email. But they live in my inbox. It's a big thing that changed the game for me. And they'll respond. They'll jump in from their email saying, "Hey, I'm just jumping on this because I'm sure you want a quick response. Here's what we can do with that situation." Blah blah blah. That's it. On the email side, I would start with email, and then I would move on to other communication platforms, and I would solve communication first. Because you got to think, as entrepreneurs, you guys have run a podcast, you have different companies, you have so much communication coming in, and 99% of it you don't need to take up bandwidth, because we all only have so much bandwidth. So if you can solve communication and make sure everything is getting filtered and only the 1% of super important things are impacting your bandwidth, that's life-changing alone in itself. Then I moved on to just, what else do I hate doing? I hate paying bills. Like I don't even log into my personal bank account anymore. Like I don't like it. I don't like logging in. Everyone wakes up, they usually log into the bank account. They make sure their bills are paid, their credit cards are paid, their travel's booked. Like then I move through just things I don't like to do, which is, my bills, my payroll for my companies, my credit cards, my paying. I don't like all that stuff. And I just kept adding on to that. And then eventually you kind of get out of that spot, and one by one over 2-3 months, you don't have to worry about that stuff.
How did you get comfortable with turning over like
act as you?
Good.
Oh, sorry. I got a little delay. So do they act as you on your emails, or are they like
sometimes
basically working as your assistant?
Yeah, most of the time they'll monitor my inbox on one screen, but then if they need to jump in, they'll jump in on a different screen and from their own email. But sometimes they'll jump in as me too, or they'll sign stuff for me if it's something, just a document I need to sign.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, like, how did you feel comfortable with like giving over like bill paying financial information? Like, is this a offshore VA, onshore? Not that that matters, but like, how did you overcome that kind of concern?
Yeah. So when it comes to bank account access, it's my chief of staff.
Okay.
And that just came through time trusting her. And I also have to, I started by two-factor authentication, so I had to approve any wire, any transfer, any ACH, any Zelle.
Nice.
And it sent me them out into a text. But now I got rid of that, and she does it all. It's just trust. There's a risk there, right? But it's a trust thing. And I'll check my bank once a week, and I go through the weekly transactions, and I have a bookkeeper, so it's not like we're not watching it a little bit.
Right.
And then on the other side with my EA and stuff for booking travel and everything, they have something called privacy card. It's like privacy.com, and it's you can set a limit on that card, and it pulls right from your bank account. So I don't give them like unlimited credit cards. So that's been a good option for like travel booking and things of that nature. I'll set $1,000 limit on that card, and then they can use it for travel and ordering things, stuff like that.
That's valuable.
Nice. Yeah, that's super awesome. Cool. Well, you got a lot going on, Cole. It's awesome to see how you've sort of like grown too in such a short period of time. So, I mean, you're only 25. What's next for you? What do you sort of plan for the rest of your 20s going into the rest of your life, which, all of us now in 2023, what do they say? Most of us will probably live to be over 100 with general stuff. So you got a lot of time to figure out whatever you want that to look like. So what's on your plan? What's on your docket?
Yeah, I think I want to stick with what I'm doing right now and just grow it as big as I can. I think there's a lot more opportunity, and you can dig a lot deeper than you think you can in whatever opportunity you're chasing right now. Like with the podcast, for example, podcasts themselves are sometimes $50, $100 million companies. Media companies. I think everyone has a responsibility if they're a business owner to create a media company around themselves and really turn themselves into a brand. I think that's a massive opportunity. So continuing to grow the brand and our presence across social media is a big thing for me. I think there's just between hiring and business partners and advisors and mentors and opportunities. It's just like there's nothing like that. And it's a slow compounding game, but it's a very meaningful game. A lot of the hires we have in our companies, we're probably not at the point to hire someone of their skill, but they just said, "Hey, Cole, I see your stuff. I want to work for you." And that's very valuable. Besides that, man, continuing to grow the companies we have. I want to sell one of our companies in the next 4 years. And I think we're on pace for that. Cool. That's a big thing for me. And just as like it probably won't. It never feels as good as you think it will when you get there, right? But that's something I want to check off. And then, that's it. Continue to grow my companies, get better and better as a leader and an entrepreneur. And I travel a lot, and so continuing to do all that stuff as well.
There you go. It. Just in it for the game, man. I love it. That's the best place to be.
Yeah.
Awesome. Very cool. All right. Well, we are getting to the end of time here. So we're going to go into our end of show questions. We ask the same 3 questions for every guest that comes on the show. And the first one is always the group favorite. And that is, what is your craziest real estate investing story? And this can be a big win, a big loss, crazy tenant, crazy seller, crazy transaction, whatever you got.
I think my favorite one is when I was 20 years old. We just started doing text marketing. I think that was like 2019 when texting became huge. And we sent out a text like a couple weeks into starting it. And 2 days later, a guy texts back and goes, "Yeah, meet me here. I'll sell you my house for $450." Like, this has got to be fraud, right? This got to be a scam. Someone trying to mess with us. I mean, this house is worth like $900 as is. And so we went there and met with him. And he walked in. He was wearing probably a $200,000 watch. Probably a 60-year-old dude. And it was my old business partner and myself. And we're standing there. And he walks up to us and says, I love seeing young guys make money and young guys that are hustling make money. And we pull the contract. He signs it for $450. That was a $200,000 assignment fee. 2 weeks later, we got paid. And I was like, we probably could have made more on it too. But it's such a big number. We just jumped on it. And that really shook me up because I was like, man, that check right there that's 5 years of the average salary in the U.S. In 2 weeks because I sent a text message. And so that really, that my tagline on my podcast I always end with is "you're one deal away," because I think the most meaningful thing for people is you're one good deal away from something in your brain switching forever and you understanding that you can like truly control your financial future and what happens around that. So that was probably my craziest deal story.
Great story.
Yeah, that's awesome. Did you ever do any research on that guy? Whenever stuff like that happens,
Yeah,
I'm always trying to figure out what
he was a massive apartment builder. So he built massive apartments all over the West Coast, and so a couple $100,000 didn't mean anything to him, and he just went through a divorce, and he was like, "You guys remind me of myself. I want to help you guys succeed." It was one of those things.
That's cool.
Yeah, and that was probably the house that his ex-wife was going to have some stake in. So he was like,
exactly. I don't want her to get shit.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. That's funny.
That's funny. All right. Second question. What is the number one tip you would give to a small-time operator trying to take their business to the next level?
Overseas talent, man. Try to make that first hire $5 an hour. Get swinging at it, because that can change your life a lot quicker than you think, and you'll enjoy your business. And even if you still want to wear a lot of the hats in your business, if you can get your email, if you can get little things off your plate, you'll wake up and be able to spend your time on what makes you the most money. And I think that's what we all want, is to make as much money as possible at the end of the day. So that would be my number one tip.
Easy.
Very good.
Cool. All right. And then last question, where can people find you, follow you, and reach out to you?
I'm on every platform. If you want more educational, like long form stuff, YouTube and my podcast, Off Market Operator. If you want to chat in the DMs or to see more short form stuff, Twitter, Instagram. I'm most responsive on Instagram DMs. That's at Cole Ruud-Johnson, on all lowercase, no underscore or anything. And I'm pretty much on every platform.
Cool. Sweet. I love it. Easy enough. Well, Cole, I really appreciate you coming on the show, man. Super good to meet you. And I love just the deep dive in, entrepreneurship and hearing everything else there. It's rare to meet people that are just true entrepreneurs and true business owners. So I really appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to come and chat with us.
Likewise, guys. It was a lot of fun. Appreciate it.
That's cool.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thanks so much, everybody, for listening. You should definitely give Cole a follow and check out his podcast as well. It's a great show. And if you like what we talk about and some of the weeds that we get into, then you'll definitely love his show, because he talks about a lot of similar stuff and at sometimes even a little bit of a higher level and just a different perspective. So, check him out there, and also follow him on the socials. Besides that, guys, please go and leave us a 5-star review on iTunes and share this with anyone else who is interested in making massive income, not just passive income, through a real estate business. And we appreciate you all. Talk to you guys next week.